Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of Awaken the Wonder. I'm here with my friend Michael Dow. Welcome back, man.
Thank you, Ro.
And for those of you that that have been following this conversation, you heard the amazing salvation story of Mike in episode 1, and then in the second episode, he talked about seeing Jesus. So make sure you go back, listen to the last 2 episodes. It's going to really bless you. Right off the top, before we start the conversation, just want to remind you guys to subscribe, hit the notification bell. For those listening on the Awaken the Wonder podcast, make sure you leave a rating for us, and it's really going to help us in the algorithms and to get the word out to more people so we can keep producing content like this. This episode, Michael, I want to talk to you about the subject that some people may have wanted to skip when they heard the tease here, because this is the subject of fasting, and it's a subject that many want to skip over. With fasting, there's a lot of things going fast in this culture. You got your fast food. You want to get to work fast. You want to get your workout in fast. You need to do something fast. And fasting isn't fast, though, is it?
No, not really.
So talk to us about the importance of what the Lord has offered us through fasting, and why it's so important and why it's for today.
Sure. So for me, the reason why it's most important is because Jesus has used it, fasting, as a way to describe what a disciple's life would look like. In Matthew 6, we find 3 when you do's, right? 6:2, 6:6, 6:16. 6:2, when you give. Nobody has a problem there. 6:6, when you pray. Cool, we're still good. 6:16, when you fast.
Uh-oh.
So this is Jesus talking. And he says, when you do these things, not if, meaning like, hey, you don't have to have somebody debate you hard enough to where you're pinned in a corner and you no longer have a reason to. He says, when. So there's an expectation there. The implications are it's going to be a normal part of your life, right? We know that in Matthew 9, when the disciples of the Pharisees come. What's interesting is the Pharisees fasted 2 days a week, and Jesus rebuked the mess out of them because they did it for performance and not out of pursuit.
Ooh, can you say that part again?
But they do. They come with an accusation because they tell him, we've been watching you.
Wow.
Because that's typically what Pharisees do.
Wow.
We've been watching you, and we've noticed we fast and you don't. It's competition, it's comparison. All of these are a part of a Pharisaical life. But they come with an indictment. We've been watching you and you don't fast. Now, they fasted 2 days a week. John Wesley birthed the Methodist movement, fiery flames of revival, shook regions. He wouldn't ordain someone to the ministry unless they were willing to fast 2 days a week.
Wow.
So there's this expectation, right? But in Matthew 9, Jesus says, the bridegroom is with them. They have no reason to fast now. But there's coming a day when the bridegroom will be taken from them. And in those days, they will be found fasting. Wow. We know in John 14:15, Jesus says, those that love me, they will obey me.
Right.
So he's made it clear. Obedience for a disciple includes fasting. So there's not a lot of wiggle room there. Now I know that
there's a lot of people, they want to stop the podcast right now.
I get it, man. I just think, for me, it's like, let's say going on a cruise, for anybody who's been on a cruise. It's like going on a cruise and realizing that at the end of it, let's say you packed a backpack full of snacks the whole time because you didn't know that they offered meals and that there was a buffet and there was a full-on experience that was made available to you, but you chose to go without it. Fasting is one of the beautiful tools. And again, handful of books about it. That's not like some product plug. It's just to say that even contained in the books reveal things, but it's not the entirety of the whole conversation. Man, fasting is, just to make a couple of statements, fasting is one of the beautiful ways that the Lord has continued to form the image of His Son in me. It conforms us to the image of Jesus. Fasting is one of the ways that we bring our lives by the power of the Spirit subject to the loving rule of Jesus in our lives. I think in some instances we forget He's a king. There's no politics in the age to come. There's no political parties. There's no lobbyists. There's no casting your vote. What we do find is a broken man seated on a throne. Wow. And He's beautiful and He's powerful and He rules and He reigns. Paul in Philippians 3, he's speaking about a crowd of folks. He says they're enemies of the cross, but then he says their appetite was their God.
Wow.
Another translation says whose God was their stomach. And in most of our lives, we're probably well aware that there are appetites that govern our day-to-day experience. Whether that's an appetite for food, whether it's an appetite for passions and lustful cravings, whether, and not to say lustful as in a sexual connotation, but just things that
Sure.
we crave. There are things that they influence our appetite, they influence our attention, and they influence our affections. Appetite, attention, and affection. Fasting is one of the ways that the Spirit begins to mine out the allegiance of your appetite, the allegiance of your attention, and the allegiance of your affections. But the goal is to bring these areas of our life. That's the total package right there. Paul is saying in Philippians 3, it doesn't matter how loud you sing. It doesn't matter how many verses you quote. It doesn't matter. None of these things are ultimate if at the end of the day your stomach is your God. What you crave.
It kind of sounds like you're talking a little bit about crucifixion here a little bit.
He said, I die daily, right? In Galatians 2, it's I no longer that live. For I've been crucified to the world and the world to me, right? But now it's Christ that lives in me. And this life that I now live is lived in the flesh by the Son of God who gave his life for me. You know, so the idea is that, yeah, the I has been laid down. I love Richard Wurmbrand. He says not just the old I, because that's cool. We're all great with that. Praise God, I'm not what I used to be. The old man has been laid down.
Hallelujah.
Woo! Like, we're all great with that. But Richard Wurmbrand says it's not just the old I, but it's also the new I. And at times we grow this infatuation with who and what we are now. And the idea is the new I continually surrendered to Jesus as King?
Wow. Now, this is a connection piece. It's obedience. It's loving him more. It's crucifixion, because we want to become more like him.
Yeah.
We've been called to rule and reign with him, seated in heavenly places. The whole thing that, like, come on, man, I get so excited about what he's called us to do.
Come on.
But a lot of us want the glory without the crucifixion part. We want to reign with him without the laying down part, without the suffering part. And the Lord uses those things to reveal the flesh and to, like, it comes out of hiding in those seasons, right?
And I think that's perfect. So a man of God that I respect says it this way. If you ever really want to get to know yourself, go on a 7-day water fast. The things that are still alive on the inside, whether that be attitudes and temperaments, whether that, it's full on. And so for me, that's important too. Fasting is about food, because as a fundamental definition.
Well, I wanted to ask you, because this is the part that people go, well, I'm going to fast video games, or I'm going to fast TV, or I'm going to fast fitness.
And it's important.
Right.
It is. It's important because as a fundamental definition, if you looked it up in the Webster's Dictionary, it could be defined this way. Fasting is abstaining from particular foods or food altogether, especially when done as a religious expression. So it's devotion. But for me, definitions are important, because once you understand the way that a word is defined, you can work with it well. And for me, you're right. Folks do try to call other things fasting. But although fasting is a discipline, not all matters of discipline should be called a fast.
Wow.
And that's where I feel like we've diluted it a little bit. And so the reward of it may not necessarily be felt as heavy as the Lord has intended, and all of what has been made accessible to us through the lifestyle pursuit of fasting.
Now, disciplines can be their own thing. That makes sense. We need to be disciplined in our health and our families and our relationships and our food and our fitness and all of that. But you're talking about something different here with fasting.
If you're not disciplined enough to turn the TV off at night to spend time with the Lord, let's just call it what it is. Let's say, man, I need more discipline in my life. Right. Like, man, I'm undisciplined in my finances. We're cool with that. People say that all. I'm undisciplined in my eating. I'm undisciplined with my attention. I'm undisciplined here and there. But not all matters of discipline should be called a fast. Although fasting is a discipline. You don't fast video games. You don't fast Netflix. You don't fast Facebook. You bring your life under discipline. Now, fasting food may assist in those areas because, like I said earlier, it deals with matters of our attention.
Right.
It deals with matters of our appetite. It deals with matters of our affections. and what we pursue and how our affections are affected. But where we need discipline, let's call it what it is. And this is where people get really mad because I say everybody can fast. And bro, the hostility. Like, you don't understand, I got health issues. Oh, cool, didn't nobody say anything about your health issues? Everybody can do something. But when we've already determined we don't want to do something, we're always able to find a million different reasons why we don't do what we already don't want to do. Like, and so for me, when I say everybody can fast, I've had people of all shapes, colors, sizes, just whatever, say, you said this and I can't. Okay, explain to me, why not? Well, I have this condition, I have this condition. Okay, all right. Could you give up sweets for 30 days? Whoa, hold on. Nope, you're trying to trick me. I'm not trying to trick you. I think that over time, man, there's a stigma and a religiosity and a performance mindset that's gotten attached to fasting. Just really quickly, I'll use Daniel as an example. In Daniel 1, we find a 10-day observance of vegetables and water. Aspenaz, who's overseeing them, evaluates them. He says, okay, you guys are good. I'm not going to lose my life. It says then, this is where most of us miss it, in verse 16, and then he allows them to continue on for the remainder of their training. It's 3 years of vegetables and water. Daniel 10, Daniel, in response to the encounter of chapter 5, the hand that manifests, writes on the wall. He says, I was so gripped, I was shook by the encounter. I entered into 3 weeks of fasting, 21 days. No meats, no sweets, no breads, right? So we get that. But in Daniel chapter 9, he's recounting the word of the Lord prophesied by Jeremiah. And when he realizes the times and seasons and the moment that is upon them, they're living in a moment of fulfillment, he says in verse 3, I turned to the Lord and gave him all of my attention with fasting and mourning and prayer and sackcloth. But he doesn't give a description of what he was doing. I love it because I believe Daniel was more committed to a voice than he was to a system. And for some of us, we're more committed to a system than we are to a voice. Chapter 1, 3 years, vegetables and water. Chapter 10, 3 weeks, no meats, sweets, breads, wine. Others say, lotion, I didn't anoint myself, whatever. But in chapter 9, it's just, I just turned to the Lord with fasting. But he doesn't say how. I believe that, man, if we would give the Lord room and space in our lives to be himself and to speak, what Daniel tells us is that he was committed to a living voice. Why didn't he say, hey man, last time we fasted, we did 3 years vegetables and water, bro, and God broke in like crazy. Wisdom, learning, insight, understanding, the ability to interpret dreams and visions of all kinds. Like, bro, that worked before. Let's just do that again. He didn't do that. He didn't do that. I think, man, if we would just let the Lord speak to us, we would find out that he's way more gracious than we understand. And we would also realize that there is real grace for where it is that we are. Because everybody can do something. And he's always going to invite us into something that he will give us the grace to fulfill.
So somebody today says, all right, I've heard you, Mike. I'm going to do my first step today. I'm going to fast today. What do you tell them? What's the first thing they should do?
I would tell them I have an 11-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And all of them have fasted in a variety of ways. These are my kids. All of them. They say, hey, Dad, I'm going to give up desserts and candy for the next 3 days. Awesome. My 8-year-old has done 21-day Daniel fasts. Just no meats, no sweets. He's committed to it. My daughter, my oldest one, she's gotten up before and said, hey, I feel like I'm not supposed to do this for the next 30 days. Fasting can be as difficult, quote unquote, as a water fast. Liquid fast, sun up to sundown fast, Daniel fast. If the Lord spoke to you and said, don't do coffee for 30 days, that's a fast. If he said, give up desserts for the next 7 days, that's a fast. I think we make it way more difficult because we just don't allow him the room to speak to us.
Right. That's so good. Man, friends, I encourage you today, take that step, do something to engage and to participate with this invitation from the Lord. He has gifted us this opportunity, this discipline to connect with him. And I encourage you to do that today. Any final words, Mike, you want to give to the audience today?
Love him, and love him well, and miss meals for him. When John the Baptist had to give up his head, he had already been conditioned and readied for that moment by the continual offering up of his stomach.
Wow. That's so good. Wow. Mike, where can people follow you?
Anywhere where stuff is, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, just search Burning Ones. Our website is burningones.org. Yeah.
Awesome. And make sure you get the books, all of his books, all 7 of them on Amazon. You can go on there and pick up your copies today. I encourage you to do that. And thank you so much. Again, encourage you to follow us, Evangelist Caleb Wampler, on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Would love to stay connected with you there. And you can get a copy of my book, Hunger. How do you like that? Hunger and fasting in Jesus' name. They can be linked together, I suppose. So bless you guys. Honor you today. Thanks for joining in. Make sure you subscribe. Leave a rating for us. Until next time. Thank you for listening to Awaken the Wonder. If you enjoyed today's show and want more ministry like this, please visit kingdomencounters.us, where you can find weekly blogs and my latest book, Hunger. Be sure to subscribe and follow me on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at the tag Evangelist Caleb Wampler. If the Lord leads you to partner with us in the nations in prayer and giving, visit kingdomencounters.us. I'll see you next time.